Welcome to tonight's video, the first video of the 2014. I want to talk a little bit about the changes that I'm going to make to the way we do language arts, and this connects back to the video you did in class about a growth mindset. I talked about some of the changes there. So tonight's video is going to go ahead and give you a bit of an overview in some of the changes. Here's my learning targets, and remember that these should guide your note-taking, and it should guide what you're paying attention to, because beginning maybe with this video, I'm going to use the targets as a basis for tests. So you need to make sure you can answer our target questions. The purpose of the video is to explain why I'm reorganizing time in language arts, and so to allow you to go ahead and participate in our first round of reading partners successfully without my having to do this lecture in class. The questions I want this video to answer, or I hope that you can answer at the end of this video, are why I changed the time structures, what new structures I'm being added and why I'm adding them, and what are the expectations for your participation as reading partners, which is one of the structures. So the questions, especially the target questions, should guide your listening tonight. This is what the new schedule is going to look like. Basically, what I'm going to do is divide the class time into 2 equal chunks of time. 40 minutes for reading, 40 minutes for writing. And everything that we've been doing is going to be kind of rolled into one 40-minute chunk or the other. I think this is just going to make things easier for everybody. And the reason I've decided to make these changes are, well, there's several reasons. One, I think we need to spend more time on reading. One of my goals for the beginning of the school year is to help develop lifelong reading practices. My goal is not to get you to the SOL. My goal is not to get you into the IB program. My goal is that when you leave me, you will have developed the habits and the practices of people who read for the rest of their lives. And I need more time if that's going to happen. I also need to do a better job of monitoring your close reading, your use of annotations, post-it notes, and your writing about your reading more regularly. We talked about this before the break. I am looking to raise the level of the kinds of thinking I see you doing about your reading and the kinds of writing I see you doing about the thinking you're doing. And we also need time to just do some reading and some thinking together, and we don't have a chance to do that. We need more time to just read good books and talk about what makes them good books. So within this 40-minute chunk of reading work, there's a few things we're going to do, and they're just the things that lifelong readers do. Just like in the writing chunk of time, we do the things that real writers do. In the reading chunk of time, we're going to do the things that real readers do. We're going to read good books out loud and talk about them. We're going to talk about how reading is going for us. We're going to silent read. That's not going to change. You're going to have 15 minutes every day, just the way we always have. We're going to keep some kind of a reading response log in ways that allow us to become better readers and thinkers. We're going to talk about what we're reading. We're going to talk about what we're reading with each other, with me, with a reading partner. People who like to read like to talk about their reading. We're going to write about our reading, and then we're going to respond to other readers. These are the things that lifelong readers do, and we're going to try and develop some of those habits. What I want to begin with, the first new structure I'm going to begin with for next class, that's why you're watching this video, so you're prepared. I am going to go over the WSQ in class on Monday or Tuesday, but I'm not going to do a lot of reteaching of this. I'm going to expect you to have gotten this from this video. You're going to be assigned a reading partner, and every day at the end of silent reading, you're going to have 5 or 6 minutes to talk with each other about your reading work for that day. And one thing you're going to do with your reading partner is to retell what's happening in your story. But here's the hitch. Nobody wants to sit and listen to someone else retell the plot of an entire story. So, before you come to that discussion time at the end of SSR, you're going to need to think about what parts of the story have you read? You're going to need to decide what's important so far, and you're going to need to make some decisions about what you want to share with your reading partner. So there is a tiny bit of mental kind of rehearsal that's going to need to happen during silent reading if you're going to be prepared to talk with your reading partner about what you read that day. So basically what that means is you're going to have to make some very conscious decisions about how you're going to retell your story that day. And your decisions are going to be shaped by the kinds of reading work you're trying to do. The focus lesson tomorrow in class is going to talk about how books are about ideas, not just about events and characters, but about ideas. And if the work that you're trying to do with the book you're reading right now is to figure out what themes are going on in the book, what the author's messages about life in general might be, how this book might change you, then maybe what you want to talk about with your reading partner is what you think the story is starting to be about. Maybe what you're trying to do is to see how the character is changing as the book becomes more complex. Maybe the character has been faced with a particular decision or a crisis, and you're trying to look and see on how the character is changing. Then perhaps what you want to talk about in your reading partnership is character development, who this character is, what they were like at the beginning, and how they changed through today's reading. Maybe if you're struggling with plot, if you're trying to figure out cause and effect, then maybe what you want to retell to your reading partner that day is what happened in this day's reading and what events led up to that particular event. So exactly what you choose to retell with your reading partner is going to depend upon the kind of thinking you're doing as you're reading during silent reading. So, what are the expectations for the next class? Remember that you have a 40-minute chunk of reading time to do the work of real-world readers, to develop the habits of lifelong readers. So here's how things are going to look. Reading work time is going to open with a brief focus lesson instead of SSR, which means you're prepared with your reading response log, your post-it notes, and whatever else you may need when we open up for the day. First class, I think I'm going to talk about reading for ideas, looking at themes, and how the author is developing themes. Once we've had this short, brief lesson, then you're going to silent read, like you normally would, 15 minutes. When your 15 minutes of silent reading is done, you're going to be meeting with your reading partner for the first time tomorrow. I'm going to assign your reading partners initially, and as we have a chance to see how this works out, I may or may not let you pick your own. It depends on how you handle it. During silent reading time, you're going to need to think about what you're going to retell, like we just talked about in the previous slides. So you may want to begin thinking about throwing in some post-it notes, jotting an entry in your reading response log towards the end of SSR time, doing some kind of a brief preparation so you have some ideas about what you want to talk about. So I guess basically what this boils down to is I expect you to go into your reading partnerships prepared. You won't have 6 minutes. It's about 3.5 or 4 minutes apiece. I expect you to come prepared. Know what you want to say. Remember that the one purpose of talking about our reading is to sort of seduce or to tempt each other into reading the same authors and titles. So try talking about your reading in such a way that you make it fascinating. And don't give the ending away, please. Lastly, what do my expectations look like for that 40-minute chunk of reading work time? I expect you to keep track of our discussion and our strategies in your reading response log, just as you would your writing discussion and strategies in your IAN. I expect you to try out the new ways of thinking about reading that we'll be discussing. I expect you to bring a growth mindset to this 40-minute chunk of reading time. I appreciate the fact that it's going to be different, and things that are different feel funny for a while. Bring an open mind. I expect you to use your Post-its to leave tracks of the thinking work you are doing as you read, which means I expect you to think as you read. I expect you to write about that thinking in your reading response log. We discussed this before the break, remember? So I guess maybe a mental note you need to make to yourself is if you don't have any Post-it notes, you need to get some. And finally, I expect you to be a good reading partner. Much like a conferencing partner in writing, you help your partner become a better reader as much as your partner helps you become a better reader. But you have to bring your A game to that partnership. So, to summarize everything, for our next class, of course you need WSQ based on this video, and I am going to do the WSQ before I begin our little strategy lesson at the beginning of the reading time. I expect you to have something to read. I expect you to have Post-it notes. I expect you to have your reading response log with you. I will be assigning your reading partner, and you will be spending about 5 or 6 minutes at the end of every SSR talking about the reading work you did that day in class. Remember the growth mindset. This is a work in progress. It's going to get better and better and better. And with that improvement will be your reading. You'll become a better, more thoughtful reader. And so, now we dance to Adele and Rolling in the Deep.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch and it's bringing me out the dark. Finally, I can see you